After a year of being delayed, Jersey Devil Coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure has finally opened to the public, and I was lucky enough to get a ride on this world record-breaking single rail coaster earlier this summer, and today I will give you my full, in-depth review of this ride. Will the single rail model beat out the other coasters made by Rocky Mountain Construction, or will it just fall short? Find out next. Hey everyone, this is Cullah Hale from Destination Thrills, and I just got back from two major theme park trips, one of them being a week-long road trip through Pennsylvania for CoasterCon 43, an event held by the American Coaster Enthusiast Club, and on this trip I decided to split off from the event just one day to head out to Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. And the main reason I went out of the way for this park is to try out the brand new Jersey Devil Coaster. And even with the long lines, I was lucky enough to grab two rides on it, one in the very back and another in row 3. Now, Jersey Devil Coaster is a Raptor model built by Rocky Mountain Construction, also known as RMC. The Raptor model is a single rail coaster with single file seating. The single file seating gives you the benefit of not having anything to your left or right, giving you an extra sense of freedom on the ride. Now, according to RMC, the single rail style would allow for a smoother experience, but later on in the review, I'll explain why that wasn't the case. Now, for those who don't know, Jersey Devil Coaster is the world's tallest, fastest, and longest single rail coaster with a height of 130 feet, a top speed of 58 miles per hour, and a track length of 3,000 feet. This would be my first single rail coaster and the sixth coaster that I've been on from Rocky Mountain Construction. And the question I had for myself going in was, will I like the single rail model better than the hybrid or wooden coaster models from RMC? Now, RMC is one of my favorite manufacturers, and 4 of the 5 RMCs I've been on are in the top 10. So this will be a hard feat for Jersey Devil Coaster to accomplish, but let's discuss the layout of the ride and see how it compares. First of all, I want to say that I absolutely love the restraints on Jersey Devil Coaster, even with the over-the-shoulder straps. These restraints actually felt more freeing than the restraints on the wooden and iBox coaster models. I think the main difference was that you had so much more room on your sides, whereas with the iBox and wooden coasters, you're kind of crammed into this tiny seat. So that was a big plus right off the bat. Now let's get to the ride experience. Like most coasters, Jersey Devil Coaster starts with a steep drop. This one happens to be 87 degrees, and due to the length of the trains, you actually get a pretty strong whip in the back seat with some ejector airtime. This is easily the best airtime moment if you're sitting in the back. If you're in the front, you kind of crawl over the top, so you hardly feel any airtime. Now, next is the dive loop. This is a pretty weird dive loop because the track kind of turns left a bit as you're going into the inversion. So you kind of have this sideways airtime mixed with the whip of the twist. It's nothing crazy, but it's a very weird, unique sensation that I'm always a fan of. Now, I do feel like this element is more enjoyed toward the front of the train, but you'll still get a pretty good feeling when you're towards the back. Now, after the dive loop, we have the big airtime hill. This is the best airtime moment throughout the train, so not just in the back, but actually through the whole train. If you averaged it out, this would be the best airtime moment. From the looks of it, this hill seems very similar to the first big airtime hill on Storm Chaser, but it wasn't nearly as strong with the airtime. However, it was still an exciting moment and definitely a highlight of the ride. Next is RMC's signature element, the zero-G stall. There hasn't been a zero-G stall from RMC that I didn't like, and the one on Jersey Devil Coaster is no exception. Great hang time and good whip going in the element and exiting the element. There is one difference, and that is the twist into and out of the element was not very smooth. The best way to describe it was like when I'm trying to make an inversion in No Limits, and the ride just kind of twists a bit, then stops, then twists a little bit more, then stops, then twists a little bit more and stops. On Jersey Devil Coaster, it's very subtle, but you still kind of notice it's a little choppy. It doesn't make the experience bad, it's just something I observed on the ride and it was pretty unique. All right, next is the turnaround. Again, nothing really exciting about this element, it's just your basic turnaround on the ride. In the front seat though, you do get a bit of airtime when you're entering this element, when you kind of hop up into the turnaround. And then if you're in the back seat, when you come off the element down that drop, you do get a nice bit of air in the back row. All right, continuing along, we have the zero-G roll. Now, the zero-G roll has the same choppiness as the zero-G stall, except it's a bit more noticeable. There is a decent whip throughout it, but nothing special compared to other zero-G rolls out there. To be honest, you'd probably experience more whip on the same element that's found on a B&M invert or a B&M sit-down. Now after this 0G roll, you jump up into the mid-course brakes. Depending on how quickly the dispatches are going, you will either go through it with little braking or you will come to a complete stop. This will greatly impact how good your second half of the ride is. I was lucky enough that both times we went through the mid-course without stopping, so that was pretty nice, and that meant that the drop coming off the mid-course was actually pretty sweet. Again, nothing crazy, but you did get some airtime on that element. And that also helped you get some good speed going into the slight overbank, which did give you some good positive G's. Now, the next part, unfortunately, was the most disappointing part of the ride for me. On other RMC coasters I have ridden, such as Steel Vengeance, Lightning Rod, and Storm Chaser, the final Camelback hills are usually loaded with crazy ejector airtime. Usually this is the most intense part of the ride, but unfortunately on Jersey Devil Coaster, the 3 airtime hill finale was actually just filled with floater air. Once that train gets to the backstretch, it does not have the same momentum, and so therefore you don't get that crazy ejector airtime that you're used to on some of the other RMCs. And if I were to judge it, probably the final speed hill is the best of the 3 hills, which again really disappointed me because those curved airtime hills sometimes are some of the craziest elements that you experience on a coaster. Now, while airtime junkies like me will be disappointed by this finale, I do think the GP will really enjoy this because the ride is very forgiving on your body, unlike other RMC coasters. And I think the ride as a whole really gears more toward the GP audience rather than those seeking the wildest, most intense attraction. And so in the end, I do think that is a very good move from RMC to kind of provide something that would attract wider audiences. Okay, so we have examined the entire layout. Now let me give you my ratings on this coaster. If this is your first time watching my coaster reviews, I will be rating Jersey Devil Coaster in 5 special categories: intensity, fun, uniqueness, comfort, and duration. I will then give the ride an overall rating, and all ratings will be on a scale of 0 to 5. First up, we have intensity. Jersey Devil Coaster is probably the least intense RMC I have ever been on. The pacing throughout the ride just isn't strong enough to give you that wild, out of control sensation. With that said, RMCs usually provide the most intense experiences that you can find. Now, I can't wait to see all the comments from all the Intamin fans below for that statement, but there is a reason why there are 4 RMCs in my top 10. So by saying Jersey Devil Coaster is the least intense RMC does not mean that this ride is tame at all. In fact, I would say that Jersey Devil Coaster provides the average thrill that you would experience on a major coaster. So for that, I will give it a score of 3 for intensity. Moving on to fun, the ride does have some fun moments. Plus, I love the solo seating and getting to have views in both directions. However, the layout just doesn't do anything fancy to really boost an above average score in this category. So again, I'll go with the average fun rating of 3. Next is uniqueness. Now, as I mentioned, there is not very many single rail coasters out there with the single file seating, so that in itself makes Jersey Devil Coaster a standout attraction. Plus, the ride has a complete custom layout for now. If Magic Mountain indeed makes a clone of Jersey Devil Coaster in 2022, then I would have to take the unique rating down a bit in the future, but I believe Jersey Devil Coaster has earned a 4 for uniqueness just for the style of ride. All right, moving on to comfort, Jersey Devil Coaster might be the least intense RMC, but this helps it become the most re-rideable RMC. The freeness of the seats and the room above the waist really makes for a comfortable experience. It also helps that this ride isn't very jerky. The only thing that's really keeping this coaster from a perfect score is the fact that the ride does have a rattle, which really surprised me for being a brand new ride. Now, the rattle wasn't so bad, but you kind of noticed it through every single element. And even though it didn't really ruin the experience, it was definitely a noticeable vibration. So with that, I'm gonna give the ride a 4 for comfort. All right, finally we have duration. I was very pleased with the amount of ride time that you get on Jersey Devil Coaster. With several elements packed into 3,000 feet of track, I think RMC did an incredible job with what they had to work with. It definitely felt a lot longer than some of the other RMCs that I've ridden. So for that, I'm gonna give the duration score a 3.5 out of 5. All right, now it's time to give you my final overall score of the ride. And if I were to be honest with myself, I would say internally my expectations were a bit too high for Jersey Devil Coaster. I was expecting an out of control wild RMC ride, and instead I got the average thrill coaster experience. With that said, this ride is definitely enjoyable, and I would still say it is more entertaining than most of the B&Ms in the park. So my final overall rating of Jersey Devil Coaster is gonna be a 3.5 out of 5. All right, so the last thing I like to do in these reviews is give you some tips for riding the ride. The first tip that you have to know is that there are no cell phones or loose articles allowed in line with you. If they catch you with a cell phone in your pocket, they will make you leave the line, and with as long as the lines have been, you do not want to experience that. Now, they do have several lockers in the general area, so I would recommend stopping by one of those before you head to Jersey Devil Coaster. It will save you a lot of trouble in the end. Second is to be ready when you're on the loading platform. The coaster is continuously moving through the station, so if you aren't paying attention and don't start boarding right away, you may cause the ride ops to stop the train in the station, which will not only slow down the operations, but you may cause a train that's already out there on the track that's approaching the mid-course brake run to come to a complete stop. And like I said, it completely slows down the experience. So if you don't want to ruin someone else's ride, I would recommend that you be ready to load when you're on the platform. Third, and most importantly, is do not pull your lap bars down until instructed to. Unless you enjoy getting yelled at like me, because I certainly did when I started to pull my lap bar down and they were like, don't do it. The ride ops actually need to pull these down for you. So whatever you do, do not pull down your lap bars. Now, my fourth and final tip is that the back seat is the best seat on the ride. However, there is a very low chance that you'll get to pick your own row on this coaster with the continuous loading system. Things are moving so fast and seats are just assigned right away. But if you so happen to go on a slow day and you get a chance to choose your own row, then I recommend you choose the back for a better airtime experience. So this is my review of Jersey Devil Coaster. Overall, I think this is a fun, re-rideable attraction, intense enough to keep the coaster enthusiasts entertained, and smooth enough to make this a hit for the general public. Now, as I'm typing this review, I have heard that RMC has changed the wheels on this coaster. Reading some of the reviews after they've made this change, people are claiming that the ride is smoother and faster than when I was able to ride it. So keep that in mind if you're planning a visit to Great Adventure, that the ride experience may be different now with these new wheels. I'm hoping to make it back out to Great Adventure in the near future, and if my ride experience ends up being much different, then I will definitely provide a updated review. But for now, these are my thoughts on this record-breaking single rail coaster. All right, now that you've gotten to hear my opinions, I want to hear from you. If you have ridden Jersey Devil Coaster, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if you like these ride reviews, I have plenty more on my channel. I will link my review playlist in the description below, along with my full in-depth review of Orion at Kings Island in the card above. And don't forget to subscribe to Destination Thrills, as we're the destination for all the latest theme park news, reviews, and content. I'm Cullah Hale. Thank you so much for watching. God bless, stay safe, and have a good one.